of every 2 men and 1 out of every 3 women will be diagnosed with cancer. But despite those huge numbers, most individuals don't know what that really means.
It's a very complicated process under incredibly phenomenal control.
Those cells together, we would call that a tumor. Specifically, cancer is a malignant tumor, and we call it malignant because not only can it invade into adjacent organs,
Cancer can actually occur anywhere in the body.
it's important to understand that the cancer that occurs in one individual is very different than the cancer that occurs in another.
The good news is that today is probably the most exciting time in history in terms of the treatment of cancer. Options that didn't exist a few months ago certainly didn't exist.
Every year, cancer touches millions of lives in Canada. But behind every statistic, there is a story. Today, a guest is not just a survivor, he is a fighter, an advocate, and a voice for change. At just 19 years old, Dylan Buskermolen was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. What could have ended his story instead became the beginning of a powerful journey. Through grueling treatments, moment of fear, and the battle of resilience, Dylan discovered a purpose: to use his survival as a platform for hope. Today, he stands as a 3-time cancer survivor, a leader with the Canadian Cancer Society, and a speaker who has inspired audiences across the country. This is more than one man's story. It is a deep dive into what cancer means for all of us, the patients, the families, and the future of our health system. So settle in, because this episode will take you from the raw human reality of cancer to the national fight for better care, to the meaning of hope itself. This is the conversation with Dylan Buskermolen. Welcome, Dylan.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Dylan, now with the statistics, we know that 2 in 5 people will experience cancer. Experience is a good word to use.
Yeah.
Okay. Will experience cancer, and personally, when at the at a very young age, when you are 19, when you are told that you are diagnosed with cancer, how did you take it? When you were informed?
Yeah, so when I was diagnosed, I was a student in university, again, 19 years old, not really knowing where my place was in the world. And I think like a lot of people, when I was diagnosed, I wondered what that meant for the rest of my life, what my life in the near term and the long term would look like, and how I would get through that. So what that looked like, what kind of support I would need, and really trying to envision my life, again, in the short term and the long term. And so it was incredibly overwhelming, as it is with a lot of folks who are diagnosed. And like you said, 2 in 5 people in Canada will be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their lifetime. So this is something that a lot of folks, whether you're diagnosed yourself or you have a family or friend or someone in your network who's been diagnosed, it's something that we all have to come to reality with and figure out how we're going to navigate that time.
At a very young age of 19 years, you were diagnosed with cancer. As soon as you heard it, what went through your mind? How did you feel about that?
Yeah, it was overwhelming because, again, I was a student. I was trying to figure out my place in the world and was living away from home for the first time. And so I think, again, with like a lot of folks, I thought this meant that I would have to put a hold on a lot of things going on in my life. And, how was I going to navigate treatment and a cancer diagnosis with my day-to-day life, and what would that look like for me moving forward? And so, not even to touch on the implications of my health and whether or not I was going to be okay, but then also how to navigate that interim, whether it comes to making time for treatment, balancing school or work or life in general with your treatment. It can be very overwhelming.
I'm trying to just take you back to the age of 19, and when it was very first time having a diagnosis, the very first day of diagnosis, what do you vividly remember?
Yeah, it's a good question. I never thought that I would be in that place receiving a cancer diagnosis, and so it all seemed very surreal. at the time. And I think that is the same for a lot of folks facing a diagnosis. You aren't expecting it to come your way, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into a new reality and have to navigate a bunch of new things all at once. Entering the healthcare system in this way, navigating how it affects your day-to-day life and the your family and friends and loved ones around you. So again, very overwhelming, and just really trying to take it one step at a time.
So cancer by itself, it's a journey, could be a nightmare too, right? And based on the age criteria, people will receive a message differently. And of course, cancer is not a message. How do you think people at different age receive that when they happen to hear that they have to diagnose with cancer?
Yeah. Well, I can only speak for myself, but, I think across ages, across demographics, everyone experiences a cancer diagnosis differently. I was really fortunate in the sense that I had support and I had family and friends who were ready to be in my corner and offer that support when and where I needed it. But I know that, again, regardless of age, folks come from different areas of support and capabilities. And so it's about, for us at the Canadian Cancer Society and for me, making sure that everyone is able to access that same level of support. So, I consider myself to be very lucky and very privileged in a lot of ways. And so I want to make sure that, again, regardless of age, whether you're diagnosed young, you're diagnosed as a young adult, or you're diagnosed older, later in life, I want to make sure that everyone has the experience that I did in feeling supported and feeling like I was ready to take on what was coming in treatment and beyond.
Based on your answer, what made you to go for the diagnosis?
Yeah.
I was about to ask that question.
As soon as the doctor, he might not have told you directly, must be your parents or whatever. It's 19 years, right? So you should have talked to your parents and whatever. So as soon as, how did you come to know, through your parents or doctor directly? Or?
Yeah, so I was living on my own at university at the time, and in my apartment I recognized that I had a small lump on the left side of my neck. And again, that's where age comes into it. I was young and hadn't had any prior health concerns, and so I thought it must be nothing. It must just be, some swelling, or maybe I was sick with a common cold or flu, and it would pass in time. Well, it didn't pass. It ended up just growing bigger over time, and so that was when, at the prompting of myself, but also some friends and family who had noticed it and were concerned for my health, prompted me to go into the hospital in Kingston, Ontario, where I was attending school at the time, and start going through the diagnosis process. And that can take longer, especially if you're a young person who isn't presenting any other symptoms. It could cause healthcare professionals to have to go through more tests or some more thoughtful questioning as to what my symptoms were. But at the end of that process, the diagnosis came back as Hodgkin's lymphoma.
How did you feel as soon as you heard that? Maybe a personal question, but...
Yeah, no, it was surreal. And I think even prior to that diagnosis, there were healthcare professionals talking to me about, well, depending on the diagnosis, you'll be submitted for chemotherapy. And that was a word that I hadn't, used in association with myself. I knew what chemotherapy was and that it was used to treat cancer, but it was just so surreal that it was being used to talk about my treatment. And so even before the official diagnosis came, I was already sort of mentally preparing for the possibility that I would have a cancer diagnosis and what that would entail.
Yeah, when we say cancer, it's not just a common cold kind of thing, right? So, especially at young age, what role that a doctor was playing or a healthcare team was playing, especially when it is related to cancer, and with your own experience after these many years, what do you think that could have been done better?
I feel very lucky that I had a really good healthcare team and, felt empowered through organizations like the Canadian Cancer Society to seek out information on my diagnosis, and felt very supported along the way. But I also know that some people don't get that experience. Some people don't necessarily feel as supported as I did or as empowered to learn about their diagnosis or advocate for themselves in the hospital room can be very intimidating and very scary. And so that's something that I, again, want to continue pushing forward now that I'm able to work with the Canadian Cancer Society is, to make sure that everyone had access to the care that I did and to make sure that everyone feels empowered and feels like they have access to information about their diagnosis and about their treatment.
How did doctors actually, did they directly tell you that, how was the conversation? How did you feel the conversation was?
Yeah.
Was it cold or did they...
Was it
say
straight on the
something?
face,
Yeah.
or like was
Did
there
they
any?
try to soothe you and then calm you down and tell you? Or?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, again, I was really lucky to have a supportive healthcare team. And so they were direct and honest about my diagnosis, but also compassionate and hopeful in their bedside manner and their treatment plan. So again, I feel very fortunate, and we know that that's not everyone's experience in the healthcare system. And I think that, again, the more we talk about it and the more we empower patients and caregivers and healthcare professionals to have those open, honest, and supportive conversations, the more that we'll see them happening and the more that patients will be able to feel supported and empowered like I was.
When you actually mentioned about chemotherapy,
Mm-hmm.
which is not something associated in your life until you were told, right?
Yeah.
What has to be in the next subsequent set of treatments that needs to be undergone, or that needs to be taken care of. Maybe there are certain ways you can do, like read it as in theory, and have some imagination. But how it was, were you able to realize that what you see that in theory, or read that in theory, is what you felt it in reality too?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of, preconceived notions about what chemotherapy entails. Certainly I was anticipating, losing my hair and having maybe some fluctuations in weight. And all that did happen. I did lose my hair. I had some fluctuations in weight based on side effects and prescription medication that I was on. So there were definitely some areas where my preconceived notion kind of lended to reality. But then also some things that I just had no way of knowing what to expect, like going into a chemotherapy suite at the hospital and seeing the extent to which, my nursing team took care of me and what was there for me, or, just to the wide range of people and prognoses that were present in the chemotherapy suite as well. I got to meet with fellow patients, with healthcare professionals, and get to know their stories and, what they were overcoming. And it really helped me, get some perspective on my own situation and how, fortunate I was in a lot of ways that I had a good prognosis, that I had access to care and treatment that was right for me. And again, really inspired me to sort of pay it forward, moving forward on how I could continue advocating for patients in cancer care.
When it comes to the chemotherapy, it's only using radiation, right?
So chemotherapy is chemicals that are prescribed to treat cancer, and then I also had radiation, which is a different set of treatments. So they're used, sometimes separately, sometimes in conjunction with each other. Again, I'm not an oncologist, so I can't speak to the specifics. I can only speak to my situation.
Exactly.
I had a combination of chemotherapy and radiation for my first diagnosis.
So how did you feel about the process, chemotherapy process?
Yeah, I was certainly scared, and especially not knowing what to expect, and being a young kid in university, all of a sudden thrown into this world, and definitely experienced my fair share of ups and downs. Especially in the first half of my treatment, when I was adjusting to this new reality, adjusting to the fact that I was feeling sick, losing my hair, not able to meet up with my friends or my family in the ways that I had before, having to be extra careful because of a compromised immune system from the chemotherapy. And, it was through that, like I said, talking with other patients in the center and realizing, how much positivity my fellow patients were able to bring to a place like the chemotherapy suite in a hospital, and recognizing, wow, there's a lot of positives in my situation and a lot of reasons to be optimistic and to continue advocating to make sure that other folks in Canada have that same level of treatment and feel that same level of comfort. But certainly, ups and downs and feelings of lows, but also feelings of hope and joy through that process as well.
So other than losing friends, losing hair, what is the longer side effect that you faced?
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't lose friends. I lost access to them for a little bit.
Okay.
I was grateful that a lot of friends, were actually, I ironically got to keep in touch more with them because I couldn't see them face to face. But, it's a long process of treatment. And so losing your ability to go for a run or losing the ability to maybe do things that you previously enjoyed that you couldn't anymore due to your physical capabilities or your mental capabilities because of the mental toll that treatment took. That's a process to get back. And then dealing with other chronic symptoms like fatigue. I had a stem cell transplant during my second diagnosis, and that came with it its own long-term side effects. It was all about, for me, taking it day by day and making sure that every day I was focusing on what I could control and what I could make better about myself and about the world, and what I couldn't control, trying my very best to let that go and just focus on what I could. But it's extremely hard, especially when you're focusing on these long-term side effects that you have to sort of work back slowly towards.
So by the word chemotherapy, it's just a word to me. I know. By process, would you be able to explain us what exactly will be done as part of chemotherapy?
Yeah,
based on your own experience, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So through my own experience, it's the process of going into the hospital. And for me, my chemotherapy drugs were administered through IV. Other chemotherapy drugs can be administered, different ways. Mine were through an IV, and while you're getting those infusions, making sure that you're staying with your nurse team and your healthcare team to ensure that your drugs are being received correctly into your body and that you're not having any side effects. And then generally there's a bit of a recovery period after that. So it's quite an intense treatment schedule with chemotherapy. And again, I can only speak for my situation, but then going home and sort of recovering until your next treatment after that, and making sure you can build your body back up before you have to receive another treatment.
Good to know. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And from your own perspective, right? What do really patients need in addition to the medical, attention or diagnosis by itself?
Mm-hmm.
What other type of support that may help, certain patients, for having a lot of hope to come out of cancer?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something we talk about at the Canadian Cancer Society a lot, is making sure that folks, have access to care so that they can access care in their communities across the cancer care continuum, right? So from diagnosis to treatment to palliative care, making sure that all these services are available. And then also making sure that that cancer care is affordable for folks so that they're not paying out of pocket. We know that over the course of a lifetime, Canadians affected by cancer can pay up to $33,000 over the course of their lifetime. And that's a big financial burden for folks to have to undergo in addition to receiving treatment. And so, that's another thing we're focusing on, is making sure that the care is not only accessible and supportive, but that it's also affordable so that people can afford their prescription medications, or they can afford to take time off of work or get to and from their treatments.
Canadian Cancer Society have accessibility to understand, how they can know better about, financially covered or no supported to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does the system also talks about the side effect, more in brief?
Canadian healthcare system.
Yeah, does it address health the side effects?
Does it talk more about the side effect?
More than other parts of the cancer care continuum, you mean?
No, when the awareness is being spread.
I see.
Right, and especially when we see 2 in 5 people have a chance to experience or diagnosed with cancer, how well they are being aware about the side effects?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's always a process on making sure that not only patients and caregivers and their family and support systems are aware of potential side effects and what treatment entails and how we can support them during treatment, but then also what the long-term side effects are and what those look like for folks who are not only experiencing a cancer diagnosis, but then living beyond a cancer diagnosis and what those look like. And again, I can speak to myself, things like chronic fatigue, and immune responses and long-term effects like that. We have to make sure that we're supporting folks at every stage of their care and beyond, and make sure that they, again, feel supported, but also feel seen and heard.
Okay, now I assume that during the course of diagnosis or after, you may have had a chance to interact with many other fellow patients who may have already fight cancer, and they may be already undergoing a treatment. Some who are within the country, maybe globally. When it comes to the treatment within Canada and the experience being shared with you, I'm assuming people have interacted with you or you had a chance to talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference you see from your perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, as we know, Canada has a universal healthcare system, and globally we're known for that, and we're lucky to have that. But we also know that there are always ways to improve that system and to make sure that folks in Canada who have been diagnosed with cancer feel supported at every step of the way. And so that's where we get to come in and talk about the great benefits of our system, but also talk about ways in which we can continue to improve it. So, making sure that cancer care is more affordable for folks who are facing a diagnosis, making sure that things like employment insurance is available to folks who need to take time off work, making sure that folks have access to the care that they need where and when they need it. So we have the really great task of not only recognizing the luck that we have in being in Canada and having access to this healthcare system, but then also working together to continue to improve it.
Cancer itself is actually physical, right? Disease itself is physical in the body, but as soon as somebody is diagnosed with cancer, then it becomes the mental battle is even bigger than what it is in physically, right? So how did you, in your experience, how did you cope up with that or how did you challenge the mental battle?
Yeah, there's certainly a mental component, and the mental and physical components of cancer diagnosis and treatment intermingle with one another, right, and affect one another. And certainly I had my low points in my mental health across my treatment experience, especially, being in the pandemic and receiving treatment then and the challenges that came with that. But again, for me, it was about, relying on my support system, my family, my friends, I have a wonderful wife, I have wonderful family, and support system who have been there for me since day one. And so for me, it was recognizing really how fortunate I was to have that, and also what I can do to make sure that other people feel that way and provide support where I can as well.
Yeah, just with regards to that mental battle, I do know someone. He passed away, by the way, last year. But he got diagnosed with cancer. It's different. It's intestine cancer, I believe.
Okay.
In 2023. And then he's a very happy man. Very happy. He's aged, right? He's very happy. He was very happy. He always cracked jokes, make people laugh, and suddenly he got diagnosed with cancer and everything fell apart, right? And he tried to be the same, but he was never the same. I saw him slowly fade away over a year. He's the one actually, when I came to Canada, right? Just my story. When I came to Canada, I was back home, I was an engineer. But after coming here, I could not find job. People are saying, hey, your engineering is back home, blah, blah, whatever. So it's not valid. You have to do another course. I did a course. and then people started saying overqualified and whatever. And then this is the guy who gave me an opportunity as an engineer.
Wow.
And I started seeing him slowly fade away, and he took it. It's the fight internally within himself is very hard. I get to see him. I get to see from him. But anyways, yeah, I'm just.
No, that's a powerful story.
It's when I went to see him. I saw him like 3 times or 4 times when he's after he diagnosed with cancer. And the last time I saw him he's like, yeah, I went to his house. I was supposed to go in the morning, but I got some appointment. I left. I went there late, and I went at 6:30 in the evening. He's like, hey, it's time for me to sleep now. He's aged too. Right? It's time for me to sleep. So, anyways, you came here. Thank you for coming. Blah blah, and that's it. This is it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done. That is the last word that he told me.
Wow.
And then a month or 2 after, he passed away. But anyways, that's cancer is mentally it's a big battle, right?
Yeah, and it's something. Thank you for sharing that, because it's something that you're right is a big part of it that sometimes folks don't often get to see. But addressing mental health and making sure that folks are addressing their mental health and making sure that that they're getting the support they need through that as well, through the physical as well as the mental, is really important. And it's something that at the Canadian Cancer Society, we want to make sure that folks are feeling supported in all aspects, physical, mental. We offer a lot of support, something like our Cancer Connection, where we, are able to match folks up and allow them to connect with other people who are going through similar things. There's a lot of benefit in just talking to folks who are experiencing something similar, caregivers, family members who are experiencing something similar. And those are resources that are all available at cancer.ca/support. And again, making sure that folks are feeling supported physically, but also feeling supported mentally as well.
We are currently talking about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And Ashok brought something about cancer taking away life.
Yeah.
So when people are losing life, and there are successful, people successfully coming out of cancer, do they really feel any survivor guilt? Because when you come out of something, which is tagged as, which is going to take a lot of time to get diagnosed, and to get cured from a cancer, and if once they successfully cured,
mm-hmm.
I don't know if there was a label is being, or is there a tag on them that they are cancer survivors? Is there a guilt for them? Are there any patients, they're sharing it, with you, or have you had experience such?
Yeah, it's a really difficult topic because, folks want to be able to feel good about finishing their treatment, but there is that aspect of recognizing that not everyone is able to complete their treatment. But I think, also for me, it was an opportunity to recognize again how fortunate I was and try and pass on that fortune. And, recognizing that through working with the Canadian Cancer Society, whether it's volunteering, donating, fundraising, speaking at an event, or working in some capacity with the organization, recognizing that I could make a difference and do what I could to raise awareness for these issues and try and make our healthcare system better for folks facing cancer. That was my way of, honoring those who had passed away, who I knew from cancer, my fellow patients that I had gotten to know, and then also to celebrate those who have continued past their treatment and are advocating and experiencing life with me. So I think for me, it's a way to not only honor those who have passed away from treatment and from cancer, but also to celebrate those same people and the people who are with us as well.
When you're really young, I feel that you're really young. When you're at university, and you have been informed about you have to diagnose with cancer. You need to undergo cancer treatment.
Mm-hmm.
How did the actual definition of resilience changed from your perspective?
Yeah, so I think for me, it was really being able to put that idea of resilience into practice. And, even when things were difficult for me in treatment, where I was feeling nauseous or sick, again, recognizing that all you can do is push forward and take one step in front of the other until you're at your next goal or until you're at your next milestone. And so for me, that was helpful. And then again, also recognizing all the amazing people that were around me and also all the other people who were taking those steps forward, and so seeing other people, other patients, other healthcare professionals putting their best foot forward every day in my cancer center and prioritizing our health and making sure we felt supported. That's what allowed me to stay resilient and to keep pushing forward myself.
If Dylan want to put himself in the shoes of an advocate, what are the biggest gap in Canada cancer care system he will highlight about?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, it's, I don't know if I can speak to what the biggest gaps are, but what I can say is that, we're doing a lot to make sure that we're addressing what our patients and what patients and caregivers and interested parties are telling us. And so, making sure that cancer care is affordable, that it's accessible, that we're making sure that we're delivering care in a way that is comfortable and accessible for folks across Canada, of all different backgrounds, of all different locations. So really just making sure that we're meeting people where they're at and prioritizing them.
Let me put the same question in a different perspective altogether.
Sure.
From the time you started diagnosing with cancer and today, what are the various areas you see improvement that has been made?
Wow, that's a really great question as well. Again, just because I'm not on the front lines every day, so I don't know the specifics. But what I can say is that I know we're constantly trying to make sure that more people are able to get diagnosed earlier. That we're trying to improve treatment outcomes and advocate for ways to improve that through government relations, through advocacy, through research, through funding, and also through support programs. So what we do is just make sure that we're advocating for those who are going through a cancer diagnosis in whatever way they are, and make sure that we're listening to that feedback and working with patients, with caregivers, with other partners and interested parties to prioritize patient well-being and patient outcomes.
If a young survivor is listening to this conversation,
sorry, what was that?
If a young survivor of if a young survivor is listening to this conversation,
yeah,
what would you like to tell them, about the life after cancer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I often think what would I tell myself at the start of my experience with cancer, and I think what I would tell myself is that not every day has to be your best day. You can take every day as it comes and how you're feeling, and again, as long as you're putting one foot in front of the other, not to put too much pressure on yourself and to not put too much pressure on those around you, but to just, again, keep going and take every day as it comes, because every day will come with its own ups and downs. Every moment will come with its own ups and downs, and that's natural and okay. And all you can do is keep, again, putting one foot in front of the other.
So when it comes to the patient, I would say, category, do you think young adults or adolescents are being overlooked compared to aged people in Canada? Right? We're talking just about Canada.
We know that adolescent and young adults are in a unique place in the healthcare and the cancer care system. In my experience, I know that because I was an otherwise healthy young adult, it took a little bit more time for me to get diagnosed. And so again, I think what we can do is raise awareness for that age category, that demographic, and make sure that they know and that healthcare professionals know that the AYA, the adolescent young adult needs, are unique, just as younger patients and older patients are, and make sure that they're being heard and that they're being validated.
So talking about that point, what do you think province by province, or government level, what do you think they are doing to get access to that information? Or
I don't know. I can't I can't speak to what each province is doing, but what I do know is that you're right. Data is important, and making sure that we know that we know how our healthcare system is being used by these demographics, and so how are adolescent and young adults using our healthcare system? What barriers are they facing? And again, what we try to do is offer support and awareness for people of all age groups, but again, talking about adolescent and young adults, is making sure that they know that there are resources out there through cancer.ca/support, through other avenues on cancer.ca, and then through their healthcare system as well. Whether it's medical support, whether it's patient support and support groups, we know that again those needs are unique, and so meeting them where they're at is really important.
Since you mentioned cancer.ca, the same question I would ask in a different way. So what is CCS, Canada Cancer Society, doing other than support and bringing awareness into the people? What else is CCS doing?
Again, like you mentioned, there's a lot of support programs that CCS offers through cancer.ca/support, through cancerconnection.ca. We also advocate at all levels of government for improvements to the healthcare system, whether it's prevention, screening, palliative care, access to care, or improving cancer care systems. And then we also fund research and make sure that cancer care is continuing to advance, and that we're making sure that clinical trials are accessible to those who need it, that new research and new treatment options are being funded and prioritized. So in addition to support, there's a lot of different ways that the Canadian Cancer Society is looking to improve cancer care in Canada.
Working with the government, what kind of policy changes are you aware of, or do you think, how much impact is CCS having in terms of policy change?
Over the course of a year, we've made an impact through several policy changes. In recent times, we saw the increase of the EI sickness benefit, which is, helping folks take some time off work so that they're able to focus on their treatment while not risking their livelihood or their income. Also advocating for screening programs throughout the country, and making sure that folks are able to be diagnosed, whether it's breast cancer screening, whether it's prostate cancer screening through the PSA test. There are a number of different avenues that we're working with governments at all levels to make sure that that cancer care is continuing to be prioritized. Yeah.
What is that change?
The employment insurance. So making sure that
only for cancer, right?
No, so for a serious illness, if you need to take time off work, you're able to have an extended amount of time off to address that before having to return.
So that's not just for cancer?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so that is beyond cancer now. CCS is working for policy change beyond cancer?
Well, no. So our focus is for cancer, but it may apply to others,
okay.
yeah.
Basically mentioned about doing research on funding.
Yeah.
Where are the various areas funding can be used for cancer treatment. Let's say you as an example. Cancer survivors, what type of funding will be required for them? In case is there any need for funding for cancer survivors?
So for research, I think funding is always necessary and always encouraged, because it's furthering treatment outcomes, it's improving our treatment options. Several decades ago, the type of treatment that I had wasn't always readily accessible and known. And so we know that when we fund research and when organizations like ours funds research, that treatment outcomes improve. And that's why, the Canadian Cancer Society is such a large funder of cancer research. So it's extremely important, whether we're improving outcomes for treatment today or exploring the treatment options of, the future, whether it's near future or long-term future. We know that funding research helps in all of those avenues.
You are a 3-time cancer survivor, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned about the first time you had a symptom of, a lump, which made you to go for a diagnosis.
Yeah.
What made you to go do a diagnosis for the second time?
Yeah, so it was actually the second diagnosis was that same lump reappearing. So it reappeared, and I was able to act much faster that time because I knew that was a prior symptom, and I had my oncology team ready to act if there was a recurrence in that same area. So I was able to go back in for more treatment, for a stem cell transplant, and then subsequently noticed after my treatment the second time that I was having a cough, and that's when we found out that there was cancer in my lungs as well. So that prompted even more treatment, radiation, and a second stem cell transplant.
Maybe this may not be applicable for everyone, but when a cancer is recurring, maybe for the same reason, for a different reason, is there any specific frequency that you can expect? Like, a common cold, I would say, at least in once in every weather change, because of the change in weather, at least kids will more react to the change in weather, and they will easily get affected to or get common cold or fever.
Right.
But cancer is not something very common, as it is season specific.
Right.
So in your would you say you can expect something to occur on standard frequency, or this is going to be very rare to predict?
You know what? I really can't say. Everyone's different, and everyone's prognosis and treatment outcomes are different. So it's really dependent on the situation.
Oh, okay. So what type of precautionary measures that a cancer survivor can take to avoid a recurrence of?
You know what? That's a good question. I'm not sure. All I can say for me was that the most I did was keeping in close contact with my healthcare professional or healthcare team, and living a healthy lifestyle for me. So that meant exercising, avoiding alcohol, avoiding things like that. But we know that sometimes you can do all of those things and still expect a recurrence, or sometimes you can do those things and not have a recurrence. So really it is a case-by-case situation, but we can only go by our recommendations, which we know is to eat a healthy diet, exercise, avoid alcohol, smoking, things like this. Vaping now is becoming more popular, and that's another risk factor. So there's no rule book to this, but we can only follow the guidelines of what we have and go from there.
At what point did CCS enter into your life? How did you approach them? Did they approach? Did you approach?
Yeah, so I started to get to know the Canadian Cancer Society during my treatment. It was as I was getting to know patients at my hospital and recognizing all of the amazing programs that CCS offered and that patients were taking advantage of. So, cancer support groups, clinical trials funded by CCS, cancerconnection.ca. These were all things that I had started to recognize were really important to those around me and started to become important to me. So from there, I got involved with Relay for Life, which is a fundraising event that was hosted at my school, Queen's University. And I got to speak at that event and eventually plan the event, or help plan the event, and recognize what a beautiful community there was at Relay for Life. And that prompted me to enter into my career at the Canadian Cancer Society. I started out fundraising for Relay for Life, just as my experience was in university, and then transitioned into advocacy and working with governments and interested parties and volunteers to advocate for improvements in cancer care.
Every research team will have a projected numbers, right? Specifically, cancer is one among the focus area on the health side. Let's say taking a decade forward, there should be a projected number, with the increase in number of cancer patients. Is really Canada ready for the projected number?
Like just now we mentioned, every 2 in 5
Right.
have chance of getting cancer.
Yeah. Well, we know that just years ago the stat was 1 in 2 Canadians could expect to be diagnosed with cancer. And so that's since gone down to 2 in 5. And so we know that we're moving in the right direction.
That is great.
Yeah. It's been really wonderful. Yeah.
But still there is some number in case if there is, that's what I think Bharat asked. In case if the number is increasing, then do you think Canada is ready?
That's a good question. I can only speculate just because, and I wouldn't, I wouldn't speculate. What I can say is that we're working, to continue prioritizing cancer care and again, working with healthcare professionals. We know that they're working so hard, and that the government is working hard to prioritize healthcare and cancer care. And so, regardless of what those numbers look like, we'll continue doing our best in that area.
Now, Canadian Cancer Society, they are running lot of campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
Which one would you be loving to be a lead?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the projects that I work on that I really enjoy is working with our ACT leads, so ACT stands for Advocacy Constituency Team Leads, and those are volunteers that work with us at a high level to meet with elected officials in their area and talk about our advocacy priorities. And what I really love about that program is that we get to work with folks who are affected firsthand and who have a real passion for advocacy in cancer care. And what I get to do is help empower them to walk into a room with an elected official and tell their story and advocate for improvements to cancer care in areas that they've been affected by. So that's an area that I've been really passionate about is, empowering patients and working with folks who have been affected by cancer, whether firsthand or as a caregiver or through loved ones or their network, and making sure that they feel comfortable in speaking up and using their voice to advocate for cancer care in Canada.
Being an advocate or doing an advocacy to make a change in the society,
Mm-hmm.
how would you like to take stories like yours into the discussion for on politics and try to bring a change from a policy perspective?
Yeah, I think we at every step of the way we want to make sure that our policy recommendations are fueled by patient experiences and by the priorities that they see as necessary in the Canadian healthcare system. And so for me, it's all about grounding our policy recommendations in lived experience and in patient recommendations, and making sure that through every step of the way the patient voice is being heard, and through every step of the way we know that the changes we advocate for and implement through policy are making a real impact on those who are affected and going through treatment and beyond every single day.
Now, do you really think young people are having enough care about cancer advocacy, or do you think they need to have more attention towards?
So I've been really grateful to work with youth across Canada on listening to their experience in advocating for cancer care and fundraising for cancer care. And I can unequivocally say that, the youth in Canada are passionate about this and really see the need for prioritizing cancer care. Just this past year, we worked with youth across Canada to write postcards to their elected officials, asking them to advocate or asking them to make cancer care more affordable, so that in their future as a young person, they won't have to save up for a cancer diagnosis if they have one. Meaning that they'll be able to think about saving for their university education, for their continuing education in other areas, for an apartment or a down payment on a house, and they won't have to worry about paying for out-of-pocket prescription medication or supportive medication for their cancer diagnosis. And so that was one area where I was really proud of the youth across the country to see that they're caring not only about their future and about the future of cancer care, but about how it affects other people too.
When I was looking for, we initially discussed about certain topics and then we came up, why don't we do a podcast or interview on episode on cancer?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then I started looking up on the net, and then everywhere I see, as soon as the very first thing that comes up is CCS, right? Canada Cancer Society. And then the very next thing that came with that is your name. Everywhere I go, I type, it's Dylan, right?
That's awesome.
And I was like, I went into YouTube, I typed, and I saw your other podcast and whatever. That's the reason I asked you, hey, you also did some podcast before, right?
Oh, that's great.
And then I went into Spotify, I believe, and then I searched the same, okay, did anybody did the same episode on the topic before, and how much are the people showing interest towards that? And then again, that's your episode with somebody on Spotify. So everywhere we see that your story is being showcased, or you are everywhere on the net, explaining your story, sharing your story and experience and whatever. How much of a change or a policy change, or your story inspired the policymakers to bring some changes into?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's about, and again, at the Canadian Cancer Society, we say it takes a society. And that meaning, nothing can get accomplished by just one person speaking up. It really takes a society, a group of people speaking up together. And so I think I'm just one voice in a series of voices who are advocating for cancer care and for continued improvement in cancer care. And so, while I have been able to share my story in a lot of avenues, I think nothing would get accomplished if it wasn't for the volunteers that we work with, the elected officials who, share their story and who work with us to accomplish these changes. It really is a society that has to come together to make these changes. And we've been fortunate enough to see that happen and see a bunch of really inspiring people come together to make a change.
Immunotherapy, precision medicine, and AI diagnostics. Among these, which excites you most?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have expertise in those, but what I can say is that innovation of any kind is exciting. Especially, for myself and for the Canadian Cancer Society, seeing innovation of any kind come into cancer care is exciting because it means that treatment is continuing to progress, continuing to improve for patients and improve patient outcomes. So, if we're talking about innovation or new treatments for cancer care, I'd say all of the above, because whatever it is, us learning more about cancer research and about cancer treatment and continuing to innovate is exciting and always a priority for our organization.
So you got diagnosed at 19?
Mm-hmm.
And may I know if it is okay? How old are you now?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed at 19 in 2017. I had my second recurrence, my second diagnosis in 2020. And then my third in 2021. And since the end of 2021, I've been cancer-free. So going on, I think 3 or 4 years now.
That's very good news, actually.
Yeah.
Good to hear. So out of all these years, where do you think the Canadian cancer treatment is heading towards? And how much do you think it will improve more? What kind of improvements did you see throughout your experience? What kind of improvements did you see or notice from 2017 until 24?
Yeah.
21, right? Sorry.
21, yeah. That's a good question. I don't know where it's heading in the future. Only time will tell. But I do know that, again, like I mentioned, treatments like stem cell transplants weren't available, 20 years ago. And those were treatments that folks didn't have access to before I was diagnosed. And while I was diagnosed, thankfully, I was in a position where they were available, and thanks to research and funding from our healthcare system, that was a treatment that I had access to. Something that saved my life and is the reason I'm here today. And so, only time will tell where we go from here. But what I can say is that without that research and without that constant innovation, I wouldn't be here. And so, I can really speak to how important it is and how important that it continues to be.
Yeah. Coming to that improvements, how much is CCS contributing to that in terms of research for the cancer treatment?
If you're looking for specific numbers, if you visit cancer.ca, you'll be able to see in our impact report and in our statistics report exactly how much is being donated or is being contributed to research on an annual basis. But what I can say is that again, research and funding research and funding support programs and innovation is, paramount to what we do at the Canadian Cancer Society and is a priority for the organization. So, It's something that we continue to raise awareness for, continue to fund, and continue to work with researchers and healthcare professionals to always push forward treatment options and research in the area.
Like you mentioned, several years ago it was 1 in 2% will have a cancer.
Yeah.
And that has made an improvement, like 2 in 5 is currently, having cancer. Right? Do you believe that the survivors are being involved in research to make this better, like the occurrence of cancer to reduce more?
So sorry, could you repeat that?
Or the involvement by the there are survivors from cancer.
Right.
Are there enough involvement by the survivors to do a research in terms of making it more better?
So how much
are
the survivors contributing to
Yeah.
research?
So like I said, at the Canadian Cancer Society, all of our, whether it's policy recommendations, research, clinical trials, innovation, all of this is patient driven and patient focused. And so we work to involve patients and survivors wherever we can and make sure that their voice and their perspective and their priorities are being heard. So again, it's a priority for us, and I think we're seeing too across Canada and across the world that it's a priority for other organizations as well, to make sure that at the core of our work, the patient perspective is being prioritized and being heard.
Now, Dylan, you said cancer changed your life for better.
Yeah.
Would you be able to tell us how?
Yeah, sure. So, I think oftentimes, and for good reason, there are a lot of negative associations with a cancer diagnosis. What I say, often is that cancer changed my life for the better because it opened my eyes to, a lot of the hardships that patients face across the country, across the world, and really how fortunate I was in having the support that I did. I saw folks who couldn't get to and from their treatments by themselves. They didn't have family to drive them to and from work or to and from their hospital appointments. And they relied on services like the Wheels of Hope through the Canadian Cancer Society to get to and from their treatments through volunteer drivers. And so, it was things like that that really made me recognize how fortunate I was, how privileged I was, and to give me a direction to go with my life and try and share that fortune and advocate for improvements to our cancer care system or to our healthcare system and cancer care, so that other people could have that same experience. I was 19 when I was diagnosed and didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life after university, and so that was something that gave me a laser focus on what I wanted to do with my life and what I wanted to contribute to the world and work towards making the world a better place through my work with the Canadian Cancer Society.
So when you were informed at the age of 19, right, about cancer diagnosis, it's kind of a speed bump in a smooth life.
Yeah.
Right. And what has changed since, you as an aspiring young adult at the university, you may had a different aspiration, towards success in your career, maybe having a different plan, as a family. And, so especially at that age, there could be various other things that you could have planned, but after hearing the cancer diagnosis, what changes you had to shift yourself because of the speed bump?
Yeah, it really caused me to look inward and to myself and what kind of person I was and what kind of person I wanted to be in this world. And how I could make a positive difference in with my experience. How could I use the experience of being diagnosed with cancer to create a positive change in the world? And through that experience and through getting to know what the Canadian Cancer Society did, it was clear to me that I wanted to be working at the Canadian Cancer Society and working with the organization to help improve the lives of folks who were diagnosed with cancer just like me. And so it was then I wanted to get involved and continue to get involved until I started working at the Canadian Cancer Society and fundraising, and then shifting my career to advocacy and and public engagement. And so that was a big shift for me, because prior to that, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and had an idea of a skill set that I was good at, but really wasn't sure. And so this not only made me recognize, again, how smooth of a life I had despite these little speed bumps, and how I could work towards making sure that everyone had as smooth of a ride as I did.
Do really the survivors live a different level of urgency in their lifestyle?
Sorry, could you say that again?
The survivors from cancer,
Yeah.
do they really have a different urgency in their lifestyle?
A sense of urgency. It's a good question. I can only speak to my experience, but what I can say about the change in how I saw my life was, prior to that, prior to my diagnosis, I didn't really have an idea of what life could be like, the ups and downs and the delicateness of life. And so for me, it was an opportunity to again recognize how fortunate I was, but also to really cherish every day and live my life with a purpose and get on track towards a goal, towards working with the Canadian Cancer Society, improving the lives of patients in my community, and focusing on bettering myself moving forward. So whether that's again through my career, but also through fitness, through reflection on mental health, and improving my mental health as well as my fitness. There were a bunch of areas in which after my treatment I thought I had no time to waste in getting back to it and living life.
In your case, the sense of urgency is for getting back to your life.
Yeah, I think that's...
And contributing more towards cancer awareness?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Now, what does the gratitude look like in your daily routine?
Sorry, what does...
How does
Gratitude.
a gratitude look like
Yeah.
in your daily routine?
For me, I think having been through multiple cancer diagnoses, I think for me, gratitude is just getting to experience a daily life and getting to enjoy maybe what some folks might find mundane or boring day to day. But for me, I really just feel grateful at every turn. And again, that word gratitude comes to mind in a lot of the ways in which, I go about just my day to day life, and recognizing from where I have been in the hospital and in an intense treatment, and recognizing where I am today, being able to go for a run or attend an event or, enjoy a day out at the park, whatever it is, definitely gratitude is always present.
So like Ashok mentioned when we started researching about cancer, right? Next to Canadian Cancer Society, your name is very popular. Right?
I appreciate it.
And with this podcast, you are going to become even more popular.
Thank you.
Now, if you have been given a chance to write something on a hospital wall,
yeah,
what would it say?
What would it say? I mean, I think I go back to, again, the slogan that we have at the Canadian Cancer Society is that it takes a society. It really doesn't come down to just one person. It comes down to a group of people coming together, and whether it's getting through a cancer diagnosis, whether it's funding future research, future treatments, or whether it's exploring life beyond a cancer diagnosis and what that means, ups and downs included. I think it takes a society, and I think that's helpful to know. Even in the middle of cancer treatment, that you're not alone, and that through ups and through downs, that there is a society of people who are supporting you and who are advocating for you.
Yeah, for folks who are listening to this conversation, there could be someone who is currently undergoing a diagnosis. Mm-hmm. What would you like to share as a message to those people?
Man, I think for me, what I would have wanted to hear is that the good days are just as valid as the bad days, and the bad days are just as valid as the good days. And through that, we're able to, continue recognizing what we have to be thankful for, what I had to be thankful for at least, but also then taking the time to recognize when things are tough and recognizing that that's okay and that you have a society of people who are there to support you through that. And that, even on those tough days, it's okay to take a knee and to get support from whether it's your family member, whether it's a friend, a colleague, or someone on cancerconnection.ca. I know I met some folks on there who helped me through some periods of my treatment. So I think recognizing that it's okay to have support through the good times and through the bad times.
You certainly, helped for someone who is undergoing a diagnosis. What would you like to share as a message to the families who have, who is experiencing or giving mental support, to the cancer or to the patients who is undergoing a cancer treatment?
Yeah. I have so much, again, gratitude towards caregivers, friends, and family who are supporting someone through a diagnosis. I know I wouldn't be here without my family, without my wife, without my parents, my sister, my extended family. I wouldn't be here literally without my dad. My dad was actually the one who donated his stem cells to me. And so I have his stem cells, coursing through my body as we speak. My mom was there with me through every day of one of my inpatient stays in the hospital. My sister provided me endless support. My stepmom and extended family, my wife. So I just had an abundance of people in my corner, and I wouldn't have been able to get through my diagnosis treatment without them. And I think for me, what's important in showing gratitude towards them is recognizing how hard it can be for them as well. And the unique challenges that caregivers and supporters go through, and recognizing that it's not just because you're not the one receiving the diagnosis, it still can be an incredibly difficult time. And that caregivers and supporters need and deserve support as well. And so, making sure that they're feeling that gratitude, that they're feeling the society of people behind them as well, and recognizing that there are support systems for them, and knowing how big of a role they play in the lives of those who are going through treatment themselves.
Now, from many of the Canadians listening to this podcast, maybe wondering, or it may excite them most, how they can contribute beyond donations. So for those people, how or what they can really show their support towards CCS?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to get involved with advocacy, which is what I do, you can go to cancer.ca/voices for change, and get involved there in an area of advocacy that you're passionate about. And then you can also go to cancer.ca and explore other opportunities to get involved, whether it's attending events like CIBC Run for the Cure or Relay for Life, or speaking at those events, whether it's getting involved as maybe a volunteer driver in the Wheels of Hope program. There are so many avenues in which you can get involved at the Canadian Cancer Society, and we're really pleased with whoever reaches out and whoever is wanting to be part of that change that we're working towards. So visiting cancer.ca and cancer.ca/voices for change is a great way to get started.
Hope is a simple word which we cannot ignore in daily life. Hope is something which is moving every single individual in the country, in the world, to look for the next minute or the next day or the next year. For a survivor or someone like you, what does the word hope means?
Yeah, I think for me, hope means working together towards a future where, no one has to fear cancer, and where we can work together to, not only improve the lives of those facing cancer, but also reduce the amount of people who have to face cancer. And so for me, hope is the idea that we can work together towards a future where we can improve those outcomes.
We have gone from one young man's fight for his life to a country's fight against one of its deadliest diseases. Now, Dylan, what does the future of cancer care in Canada mean to you personally?
I'd say that, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the constant advancements, the work from organizations like the Canadian Cancer Society, but also from our healthcare system and our healthcare professionals. And so for me, the future of cancer care in Canada looks like, continuing to support one another and continuing to prioritize patient experience and working together to improve our cancer care system, working together as a society. At CCS, we know it takes a society to improve cancer care and show support for one another. If you'd like to join us in this mission, you can visit cancer.ca to learn more. And to get involved with advocacy, you can visit cancer.ca/voices for change.
We began today with one man's diagnosis at 19 years old. But what Dylan shared with us is much bigger than his personal story. It's about every Canadian who has faced or will face the reality of cancer. From the struggles of treatment to the mental toll, from the gaps in our healthcare system to the fight for policy change, Dylan reminded us that the battle against cancer isn't fought in isolation. It's fought together. If his story moved you, let it move you into action. Support the Canadian Cancer Society, get involved in your community. And most importantly, never underestimate the power of hope. Dylan's journey shows us that even in our darkest hours, we can become a light for others. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and remember, the fight against cancer is all of ours.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you
Thanks,
for your
everyone.
time.
Appreciate it.
Nice conversation.
Yeah, nice conversation. Thanks for having me.